Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are exploring how top documentaries capture the massive $80 billion coffee industry from two drastically different angles. I mean, whether you're sipping a dark roast from a French press at your kitchen table or grabbing a meticulously crafted pour-over downtown, the actual journey of those beans is vastly more complex than most of us realize. So today, we're going to categorize the top coffee documentaries based on their primary focus, completely unpacking how these films reveal the full picture of this massive global commodity. Let's kick things off with a pretty provocative question, one that frames our entire journey today. What is the true cost of your morning cup? Filmmakers have actually been trying to answer this for decades, but what's absolutely fascinating is that they arrive at completely different answers depending on exactly where they point their cameras. To truly understand coffee, we have to look at the source material through these two distinct cinematic lenses. It's essentially the heart versus the hands. On one side, you've got this macro view, the sweeping social, economic, and environmental impacts of global coffee farming. And on the flip side, you have the micro view, the highly obsessive, incredibly precise, and deeply technical craft of brewing the perfect cup. Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. We'll start by defining these two distinct lenses on coffee. Then, we'll dive into the films focusing on social impact, followed by the ones obsessed with technical craft. Finally, we'll look at the rare documentaries blending community and craft together. All right, jumping right into our first section, two lenses on coffee. Think of this as the left and right brain of the global coffee world. This brilliantly illustrates the paradigm shift we see across these films. Social impact documentaries are deeply rooted in the origin of the bean. They tackle the heavy, gritty realities, economics, human rights, and environmental degradation in developing nations. Meanwhile, technical craft films exist in a completely different universe. They are hyper-focused on extraction metrics, high-stakes barista competitions, and state-of-the-art machinery. It literally is like looking at two completely different sides of the industry's brain. Moving into our second section, let's really focus on that social impact side and see how filmmakers are documenting the human and environmental realities of the trade. Now, what's really staggering to wrap your head around is the sheer scale of the global coffee industry. It generates retail sales of $80 billion a year. $80 billion! That is an unbelievable amount of wealth generated from a single agricultural product. It's one of the most heavily traded commodities on the planet, tied up in futures trading and massive financial speculation. But here is the wild part. Documentaries like Black Gold highlight a completely different reality at the bottom of the chain. A farmer might receive only 3 cents for a cup that easily sells for $3 in a cafe. When you put that tiny 3 cents up against an $80 billion global market, you can see why this disparity becomes the driving narrative for social impact filmmakers. They are fundamentally asking, where exactly is all the money going? The sources note that these four multinational corporations completely dominate the market. This creates an incredibly brutal landscape for figures like Tadesse Maskela, who is fighting for fair prices for Ethiopian farmers. Black Gold actually follows Maskela as he manages a cooperative union representing over 74,000 farmers. We watch him travel all over the globe, from London to Seattle, trying to bypass the International Commodities Exchange. He's out there actively searching for buyers willing to pay his farmers a living wage, directly challenging these corporate Goliaths. The filmmakers impartially use these harsh economic realities to frame the global coffee trade as a potential tool for neocolonialism. The documentary presents the argument that while coffee has this immense potential to be a wealth creation engine for developing nations, the current market structure often completely prevents that wealth from reaching the actual producers. It's a pretty stark look at the financial mechanics behind our morning routine. You see a very similar vibe in the documentary A $6 Cup of Coffee. The film directly juxtaposes the daily struggles of a fragile Mexican farming community with the demands of premium American coffee shops. It connects an indigenous coffee co-op in Chiapas, Mexico, right to the counter of third-wave coffee shops in Seattle. You know, those artisanal cafes that treat coffee like fine wine. It perfectly highlights the stark tension between the fragile reality of the producers and the affluent, highly demanding environment of the consumers. Now, let's pivot to the environment for a second. The film Shade-Grown Coffee reveals a shocking 50% drop in global songbird populations over just 40 years. This shows the heavy ecological cost of unsustainable, sun-grown coffee farms. The documentary emphasizes that pushing for mass-produced, conventional sun-grown coffee leads to severe long-term consequences, like soil erosion and agrochemical exposure. But by supporting shade-grown farms, where coffee plants grow naturally beneath a forest canopy, we can actually preserve vital ecosystems and ensure the survival of crucial species like these songbirds. Okay, let's switch gears completely for our third section. We are going to focus on technical craft and the obsessive pursuit of the perfect cup. If you check out the documentary, The Rise of Espresso, you'll see this fascinating timeline tracing how Italian migrants transformed a simple, dark roasted habit into an evolving global machinery revolution. What started around 1900 as a cultural tradition using home mocha pots evolved dramatically by the 1980s. That's when the industry really started uncovering the aromatic nuances of specialty coffee. Fast forward to today, and we are looking at a global phenomenon. Over 2 billion espresso-based beverages are consumed daily, all driven by cutting-edge, highly engineered espresso machines. Then you have films like Barista, which dive into the intense character dynamics at the US Barista Championships. They introduce us to a craft culture that honestly rivals the sommelier world. We watch competitors obsess over every microscopic detail of extraction. The crucial point here is the contrast. When a highly endorsed, self-assured personality like Charles Babinski enters the fray, it creates this fascinating tension against the other baristas who are quietly pouring their absolute souls into 15 minutes of foam and flavor. This leads us right to the film The Coffee Man, which perfectly captures this coffee-centric personality through the eyes of one guy. When we talk about technical craft documentaries, they are almost entirely character studies of people who fit this exact definition. They aren't just making a beverage, right? They are on an all-consuming, obsessive quest for absolute perfection in a cup. The film tracks Sasa Sestic's electric journey step by step. It really proves that technical mastery requires both global exploration and a totally eccentric personal drive. We see his path from humble origins in Yugoslavia all the way to traveling through remote farms in Ethiopia and Honduras just to source the exact right beans. And it all culminates in his triumphant win at the 2015 World Barista Championship. It's a prime example of the technical lens, celebrating the individual's triumph over the bean. Finally, let's explore our fourth section, blending community and craft. These are the rare documentaries bridging the two worlds. If you're building a watch list, you can really map these out. As you can see, Black Gold leans entirely towards social impact, while Barista is firmly rooted in technical craft. But a few rare masterpieces actually manage to blend both. Films like Caffeinated and A Film About Coffee connect the left and right sides of the brain, showing us that the craft happening in the cafe is entirely dependent on the social and environmental health at the origin. These films bridge the intellectual and geographical gaps beautifully. They show how the lives of farmers and the skills of baristas are completely codependent. Caffeinated literally takes us on a seed-to-mug journey, interviewing both the farmers growing the beans and the connoisseurs brewing them in major cities. Similarly, A Film About Coffee whisks us from the rural farms of Honduras and Rwanda straight into the high-end, meticulous coffee shops of Tokyo and Portland. They show us that specialty coffee isn't just about perfect extraction, it's about honoring the hands that pick the fruit. So here is what I want to leave you with today. Ponder this the next time you take a sip of your morning brew. How will your next cup of coffee change now that you know exactly what goes into it? Are you going to think about the 3 cents going to the farmer, the songbirds in the forest canopy, or the obsessive barista dialing in the espresso machine? By looking at these films through their distinct lenses, we really do unlock a much deeper appreciation for the $80 billion global engine behind our daily caffeine. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep exploring.